First contact. The Deep Space Monitoring Station orbiting Jupiter was typically a quiet posting. Lieutenant Sarah Chen found the isolation soothing as she pored over data streams from the array of long-range sensors pointed out towards the cosmos. After 3 years on this assignment, she had settled into a comfortable routine. That routine was shattered on an otherwise unremarkable Tuesday. Sarah jolted upright in her chair as an alert flashed across her console. She quickly pulled up the incoming data feed, her heart racing. This was no false alarm or glitch in the system. The signal was unmistakable, a clear pattern of prime numbers, broadcasting on a narrow band normally used only for Earth's most sensitive communications. "Holy shit," Sarah whispered. She took a deep breath to calm herself, then opened a secure channel to Mission Control back on Earth. "This is Deep Space Monitor Juno reporting the code Omega. I repeat, we have a code Omega. An alien signal has been detected." The next 48 hours were a whirlwind as Sarah's discovery sent shockwaves through the global scientific community and corridors of power. She found herself whisked back to Earth for endless debriefings as the world's foremost experts in astronomy, linguistics, and xenobiology pored over every scrap of data from the alien transmission. Dr. Amit Sharma, the lead xenolinguist at the United Earth Space Agency, was practically giddy as he presented his findings to the hastily assembled panel of world leaders and military brass. "The signal appears to be an invitation," he explained, gesturing excitedly at the holographic display. "We've managed to decode portions of it. It seems to be giving coordinates for a planet in the Tau Ceti system, along with what we believe are landing instructions." General Zhang of the United Earth Defense Force leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "And you're certain this isn't some kind of trap? We know nothing about who or what sent this message." Dr. Sharma nodded vigorously. "Of course, we can't be 100% certain, but the signal's complexity and the effort put into making it decipherable suggests a genuine attempt at communication. This could be humanity's greatest opportunity for advancing our knowledge and technology. We can't afford to ignore it." The debate raged for days as humanity grappled with how to respond to this unprecedented situation. In the end, the allure of potential alien contact proved too great to resist. A bold plan was put into motion. The UES Odyssey, Earth's most advanced deep space vessel, was quickly retrofitted for the long journey to Tau Ceti. A crew of 120 was assembled, representing the best and brightest humanity had to offer: scientists, soldiers, and specialists from every field that might prove useful in an alien encounter. Sarah Chen found herself assigned as the mission's communications officer, much to her surprise. "Your familiarity with the original signal makes you uniquely qualified," she was told. She couldn't argue with that logic, even if the prospect of such a momentous journey filled her with equal parts excitement and terror. As the day of launch approached, Sarah stood on the observation deck of the space elevator, gazing down at the blue marble of Earth. She wondered if she would ever see her home again. The Odyssey was equipped with experimental faster-than-light engines, but even so, the round trip to Tau Ceti would take nearly 2 years. A hand on her shoulder startled Sarah from her reverie. She turned to see Captain Michael Erickson, the mission commander, giving her a reassuring smile. "Having second thoughts, Lieutenant?" he asked. Sarah shook her head. "No, sir. Just taking it all in. Everything's happening so fast." Erickson nodded in understanding. "It's a lot to process. But remember, you're part of something truly historic. Whatever we find out there, humanity will never be the same." The launch countdown seemed to pass in the blink of an eye. Before Sarah knew it, she was strapped into her acceleration couch as the Odyssey's engines roared to life. The G-forces pressed her back into her seat as Earth fell away beneath them, growing smaller and smaller until it was just another point of light in the star-filled void. As they cleared the solar system and prepared for their first faster-than-light jump, Sarah felt a mix of emotions she couldn't quite name. Fear, certainly. Excitement. A touch of sadness for what and who she was leaving behind. But overshadowing it all was a sense of wonder at the sheer magnitude of what they were undertaking. Humanity's first journey to the stars had begun. The weeks stretched into months as the Odyssey hurtled through the vastness of space. The crew settled into their routines, running drills and simulations to stay sharp for whatever they might encounter. Sarah spent much of her time analyzing and reanalyzing the alien signal, searching for any additional clues about what awaited them. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the mission's chief xenobiologist, became a frequent visitor to Sarah's workstation. The two women formed a fast friendship, bonding over their shared excitement for the unknown. Just think, Elena mused one day as they shared a meal in the ship's mess hall. In a few months, we could be making first contact with an alien civilization. Everything we thought we knew about life in the universe could be turned on its head. Sarah nodded, pushing her food around her plate absently. I know. It's almost too big to wrap my head around. I keep wondering, why us? Why now? What if we're not ready? Elena reached across the table to squeeze Sarah's hand. Hey, no one's ever truly ready for something like this. But if any group of humans was going to represent Earth to an alien species, I'd put my money on this crew. As they neared the Tau Ceti system, the atmosphere aboard the Odyssey grew tense with anticipation. Long-range scans confirmed the presence of a habitable planet at the coordinates provided in the alien signal. It was slightly larger than Earth, with 2 small moons and a breathable atmosphere. Captain Erickson gathered the crew for a briefing as they prepared for their final approach. We've come further than any humans in history, he said, his voice steady and confident. Whatever happens next, I want you all to know how proud I am of this crew. We've trained for every contingency, but the unexpected is always possible. Stay alert, trust your instincts, and above all, remember that we're here as representatives of all humanity. Let's make first contact one for the history books. Sarah's hands flew over her console as they entered orbit around the alien world. The signal that had brought them across light years of space was stronger than ever, pulsing from somewhere on the planet's surface. I've pinpointed the signal source, Captain, she reported. It's coming from a large structure near the equator in what appears to be a vast city. Erickson nodded grimly. Any sign of defensive systems or other technology we should be worried about? Negative, sir, replied Lieutenant Commander Jackson from the tactical station. If they have orbital defenses, they're well hidden. No signs of ships or satellites either. The captain considered for a moment, then made his decision. All right, people, let's do this by the book. We'll take a shuttle down with a small team, myself, Dr. Rodriguez, Lieutenant Chen, and a security detachment. The rest of you maintain orbit and be ready for anything. As Sarah strapped herself into the shuttle, her heart pounding, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into something far bigger and stranger than any of them could imagine. She glanced around at her fellow crew members, seeing her own mix of excitement and apprehension mirrored in their faces. The shuttle descended through wisps of alien clouds, the sprawling city growing larger beneath them. Sarah gasped as the details came into focus. The architecture was unlike anything she had ever seen, graceful spires and swooping arches that seemed to defy gravity, all gleaming in iridescent hues. But something was off. The city was eerily still. No vehicles moved along its streets, no aircraft dotted its skies. It was as if the entire metropolis was holding its breath, waiting. They touched down on a large circular platform that pulsed with soft blue light. As the shuttle's hatch opened, Sarah took her first breath of alien air. It was sweet and crisp, with an undefinable scent that made her head swim slightly. Stay sharp, everyone, Captain Erickson warned as they disembarked. We don't know what kind of welcome to expect. They didn't have to wait long to find out. As if summoned by their arrival, a group of figures emerged from a nearby structure. Sarah's jaw dropped as she got her first clear look at the planet's inhabitants. They were undeniably alien, yet hauntingly familiar. Humanoid in overall shape, but taller and more graceful, with skin that shimmered in subtle patterns of color. Their faces were eerily beautiful, with large, almond-shaped eyes that seemed to glow from within. But what struck Sarah most was the fact that every single one of the aliens appeared to be female. One of the aliens stepped forward, raising a hand in what seemed to be a gesture of greeting. When she spoke, her voice was melodic and clear, the words somehow translating directly into Sarah's mind. "Welcome, travelers from distant Earth. We are the Astrea, and we have long awaited this day. Come, there is much to discuss." As the human delegation followed their alien hosts into the gleaming city, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they had just stepped into a situation far more complex and potentially dangerous than any of them had imagined. The adventure, and the true test of humanity's readiness for the cosmic stage, was only just beginning. Secrets of the Astrea. The human delegation followed their alien hosts into a vast, crystalline structure that seemed to hum with barely contained energy. Captain Erickson walked at the front, his posture tense but determined. Sarah Chen kept pace just behind him, her mind racing as she tried to process the alien environment. As they entered a large, circular chamber, Sarah gasped. The walls were alive with swirling patterns of light, displaying what appeared to be star charts and complex mathematical equations. At the center stood a towering holographic projection of a double helix, but unlike any DNA Sarah had ever seen. This one pulsed with an otherworldly glow and seemed to have additional strands intertwined with the familiar structure. The lead Astrea, who had introduced herself as Zara, gestured towards the projection. "This, honored guests, is the key to our civilization's greatest achievement and our greatest burden." Dr. Rodriguez stepped forward, her eyes wide with scientific curiosity. "It's beautiful," she breathed. "But what exactly are we looking at?" Zara's expression turned solemn. "It is the culmination of millennia of genetic engineering. We have perfected our species, eradicating disease, extending our lifespans, and enhancing our natural abilities. But in doing so, we have also changed the very nature of our reproduction." Captain Erickson frowned. "I couldn't help but notice that your entire population seems to be female, at least by human standards. Is this related to your genetic modifications?" Zara nodded. "Perceptive, Captain. Yes, many generations ago, our scientists determined that the male gender was inefficient, prone to aggression, shorter-lived, and ultimately unnecessary for the continuation of our species. So, we simply removed those traits from our genetic code." A murmur of shock ran through the human group. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. The casual way Zara spoke of such a monumental change was unsettling. "But how do you reproduce?" Dr. Rodriguez asked, her scientific curiosity warring with evident unease. Zara smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "We have developed a process of parthenogenesis, allowing us to produce offspring without the need for male genetic material. Each child is a perfect clone of her mother, with carefully controlled mutations to ensure genetic diversity." Captain Erickson's hand had drifted to his sidearm, though he didn't draw it. "This is a lot to take in, but I have to ask, why invite us here? Why reach out to a species so different from your own?" The atmosphere in the room shifted subtly. Sarah noticed several Astrea moving to block the exits. Zara's voice took on a new edge as she replied, "Because, Captain, for all our advancements, we have reached an impasse. Our genetic perfection has become a prison. We can no longer evolve, no longer adapt. And now, a new threat has emerged that we are ill-equipped to face." With a wave of her hand, Zara changed the holographic display. The image of DNA was replaced by something that made Sarah's blood run cold. It looked like a virus, but it moved with an unnatural intelligence, its structure constantly shifting and adapting. "We call it the Omega strain," Zara explained. "A biological weapon created by a rival species we thought long vanquished. It attacks our perfect genome, unraveling everything we've achieved. Our scientists have determined that the only way to combat it is to introduce new, imperfect genetic material into our population." The implications hit Sarah like a punch to the gut. She saw the realization dawn on her crewmates' faces as well. Captain Ericsson's voice was tight as he spoke. "You brought us here to be, what? Reading stock." Zara at least had the decency to look somewhat ashamed. "I apologize for the deception, but we had no choice. The survival of our entire species is at stake. We need the genetic diversity that only you can provide. And if we refuse..." Ericsson's hand was now firmly on his weapon. The Astraea leader's expression hardened. "That is not an option, Captain. You will cooperate, willingly or not. The fate of 2 species now hangs in the balance." In that moment, all hell broke loose. Captain Ericsson drew his weapon, but before he could fire, a wave of energy pulsed through the room. Sarah felt her muscles lock up, her body frozen in place. She watched helplessly as the Astraea efficiently disarmed and restrained the human delegation. Zara approached Sarah, her alien features a mask of cold determination. "I truly am sorry it had to be this way, but you'll come to understand in time. This is for the greater good for both our peoples." As Sarah felt herself slipping into unconsciousness, her last thought was of the Odyssey in orbit above. They had to find a way to warn the ship, to prevent the rest of the crew from falling into this trap. But as darkness claimed her, she feared it might already be too late. Sarah awoke with a pounding headache, her vision blurry as she tried to make sense of her surroundings. She found herself in a small, sterile room that reminded her unnervingly of a hospital. As her eyes focused, she realized with a start that she wasn't alone. Dr. Rodriguez lay on a nearby bed, still unconscious. Before Sarah could attempt to rouse her friend, the door slid open with a soft hiss. An Astraea entered, this one dressed in what appeared to be a medical uniform. She carried a tray of unfamiliar instruments. "Good, you're awake," the alien said, her voice clinically detached. "We can begin the procedure." Sarah tried to sit up, only to find her limbs unresponsive. Some kind of paralytic agent, she realized with growing panic. "What procedure?" she managed to croak out. "Where are the others?" The Astraea began arranging her instruments as she spoke. "Your male companions have been taken to secure holding facilities. They will be processed separately. As for you and the other females, we will be beginning the genetic integration process immediately." Sarah's mind raced, searching for a way out of this nightmare. "You can't do this," she protested. "With sentient beings, not lab rats. There has to be another way." The alien paused, regarding Sarah with what might have been pity. "I understand your fear, but you must understand, this is about the survival of our entire civilization. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few." As the Astraea approached with a menacing-looking device, Sarah closed her eyes and focused all her will on moving, on breaking free of whatever was holding her down. Just as she felt the cold touch of metal against her skin, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. The Astraea's head snapped up, her eyes widening in surprise. "Impossible," she muttered, rushing to a nearby console. Sarah couldn't see the display, but the alien's reaction told her all she needed to know. Something had gone very, very wrong for their captors. Taking advantage of the distraction, Sarah redoubled her efforts to break free. She felt a tingling in her extremities, the paralysis beginning to wear off. With a Herculean effort, she managed to roll off the bed, crashing to the floor with a thud that sent pain shooting through her body. The Astraea whirled around, but before she could react, the entire room shook violently. The lights flickered and went out, plunging them into darkness, broken only by the flashing of red emergency beacons. Sarah heard the alien curse in her musical language, then the sound of retreating footsteps. She lay there for a moment, waiting for her strength to return, her mind whirling with questions. What was happening? Had the Odyssey launched some kind of rescue attempt? As feeling returned to her limbs, Sarah pulled herself to her feet, stumbling over to check on Elena. To her relief, the doctor was beginning to stir. "Elena," Sarah hissed, shaking her friend's shoulder. "Wake up. We need to move." Elena's eyes fluttered open, confusion quickly replaced by fear as she took in their surroundings. "Sarah, what's going on?" "I'm not sure," Sarah admitted, helping Elena to her feet. "But whatever it is, we need to use this chance to escape and find the others." The two women made their way to the door, which hung partially open, its locking mechanism apparently disabled by whatever had caused the power failure. The corridor beyond was chaos. Emergency lights cast everything in a red glow, and they could hear shouts and running footsteps in the distance. "Which way?" Elena asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Sarah closed her eyes, trying to recall the path they had taken when first brought to this facility. "Left," she said after a moment. "I think the exit is that way." They moved as quickly and quietly as they could, pressing themselves against the wall whenever they heard approaching footsteps. As they rounded a corner, they came face to face with a group of Astrea rushing in the opposite direction. For a moment, both groups froze in surprise. Then one of the aliens shouted something in their language, and chaos erupted. Sarah and Elena turned and ran, no longer bothering with stealth. They could hear the Astrea in pursuit, gaining on them with inhuman speed. Just as Sarah thought they were about to be recaptured, a familiar voice rang out. "Down here." She spotted Captain Erickson waving frantically from a partially hidden alcove. Without hesitation, Sarah grabbed Elena's hand and dove for cover. The captain helped pull them into what turned out to be a small maintenance shaft. "Boy, am I glad to see you too," Erickson said as he sealed the entrance behind them. "When everything went to hell, I was afraid we'd lost you." "Captain, what's happening?" Sarah asked, trying to catch her breath. "Did the Odyssey launch an attack?" Erickson's expression turned grim. "I wish it were that simple. No, it seems our Astrea friends have bigger problems than us. That Omega strain they told us about, it's here, and it's spreading fast." Elena gasped. "But how? They make it sound like it was just a potential threat." "Apparently, they underestimated its adaptability," Erickson explained as he led them through the narrow passage. "From what I've gathered, it mutated and broke containment just hours after we arrived. The entire city is in lockdown." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. They had escaped one danger only to find themselves in an even deadlier situation. "So what's the plan, sir?" "First priority is regrouping with the rest of our team," Erickson said. "Then we find a way to contact the Odyssey and get the hell off this planet before we all end up as either lab rats or victims of an alien supervirus." As they emerged from the maintenance shaft into what appeared to be a deserted laboratory, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that their troubles were only just beginning. The Astrea's perfect society was crumbling around them, and humanity had been pulled into a conflict beyond anything they could have imagined. But as she looked at the determination on Captain Erickson's face and felt Elena's steadying presence beside her, Sarah found a glimmer of hope. Humanity had come this far into the unknown. Together, they would find a way to survive this crisis and make it home. The true test of their species' resilience and ingenuity was about to begin. Survival in the fallen Eden. The flickering emergency lights cast eerie shadows as Sarah, Elena, and Captain Erickson crept through the deserted corridors of the Astrea facility. The once immaculate halls were now littered with debris, and the air hung heavy with an acrid scent that made their eyes water. "Over here," Erickson whispered, gesturing towards a partially open door. "Looks like some kind of control room." They slipped inside, Sarah's breath catching as she took in the advanced technology surrounding them. Holographic displays flickered with streams of alien data, while strange, pulsing crystals seemed to serve as power sources. Elena made her way to one of the consoles, her fingers hovering over the unfamiliar controls. "If I can just figure out how to access their systems, maybe we can locate the rest of our team." As Elena worked, Sarah turned to the captain. "Sir, even if we regroup, how are we supposed to get off this planet? Our shuttle was probably seized, and we have no way to contact the Odyssey." Erickson's face was grim. "One problem at a time, Lieutenant. First, we survive. Then we'll worry about escape." Suddenly, Elena let out a triumphant exclamation. I've got it. I've tapped into their security feeds. The largest display sprang to life, showing multiple views of the facility. What they saw made their blood run cold. In one section, they could see Astrea scientists working frantically in a sealed laboratory, their movements frantic as they handled vials of a sickly green substance. In another, groups of Astrea civilians huddled in what appeared to be quarantine zones, fear evident on their alien features. But it was the third feed that truly horrified them. It showed a section of the city outside the facility, and it was pure chaos. Astrea ran through the streets in panic as others pursued them, but these weren't normal Astrea. Their bodies were twisted, skin mottled with pulsing growths, eyes glowing an unnatural red. The Omega strain, Elena whispered, her voice shaking. It's worse than we thought. It's not just a virus, it's turning them into something else. As they watched in horror, one of the infected Astrea caught up to a fleeing civilian. Instead of attacking, it grabbed the victim's face with both hands. There was a flash of sickly green light, and when it pulled away, the civilian's eyes had turned the same glowing red. It's not killing them, Sarah realized, her stomach churning. It's converting them. Ericsson's hand tightened on his weapon. We need to move. Now, find our people and get to higher ground before that infection spreads to this sector. Elena nodded, her fingers flying over the alien controls. I've got a location on the rest of the team. They're being held 2 levels down from us. As they prepared to leave, a new alert flashed across the screen. Elena's eyes widened as she translated the alien text. Oh no, they're initiating some kind of purge protocol. The facility is going into complete lockdown in 10 minutes. Then we've got 10 minutes to get our people and find a way out, Erickson said, his voice steely with determination. Move out. They raced through the twisting corridors, guided by Elena's hastily memorized directions. Twice they had to duck into hiding as groups of panicked Astrea ran past, too focused on their own escape to notice the humans. With less than 5 minutes to spare, they reached the holding cells. Sarah's heart leaped as she saw the rest of their team, Lieutenant Commander Jackson, Dr. Yamamoto, and Sergeant Cruz, locked behind a shimmering force field. Stand back, Erickson shouted, aiming his weapon at the control panel. A well-placed shot shorted out the system, causing the force field to flicker and die. As their freed comrades stumbled out, Cruz's eyes widened in alarm. Captain, behind you. They turned to see a group of Astrea security forces charging towards them, weapons raised. But before either side could open fire, a blood-curdling screech echoed through the corridor. From an intersecting hallway, a wave of infected Astrea surged forward, their mutated forms moving with terrifying speed. Run, Erickson bellowed, and no one needed to be told twice. They sprinted through the facility, the sounds of chaos erupting behind them as the security forces engaged the infected. Sarah's lungs burned as they raced against time, the facility's automated voice calmly counting down to lockdown in the Astrea's melodic language. Just as the final seconds ticked away, they burst through a set of heavy doors onto a landing platform. Sarah's heart soared as she saw their shuttle, miraculously untouched in the chaos. Everyone in now, Erickson ordered as he slammed his hand on the door controls, sealing the infected inside just as they reached the threshold. They piled into the shuttle, Erickson and Jackson jumping into the pilot seats. As the engines roared to life, Sarah looked out the viewport to see the city below them descending into madness. Fires raged across the once pristine landscape, while swarms of infected Astrea poured through the streets. My God, Elena breathed, pressing her hand against the glass. Their whole civilization, it's falling apart in a matter of hours. As the shuttle lifted off, a blinding light suddenly filled the sky. They looked up to see a massive shape descending through the clouds, the Odyssey, coming in for a landing despite the obvious dangers. What are they doing? Cruz exclaimed. They're going to be infected. Ericsson's voice was tight as he opened a communication channel. Odyssey, this is Captain Ericsson. Abort landing immediately. The situation planetside is critical. The response came back garbled with interference, but the meaning was clear. Captain, glad, alive, can't abort, systems compromised, forced landing. Horror dawned on Sarah's face as she realized the implications. The Astraea must have had some kind of failsafe. They've taken control of the Odyssey. They watched helplessly as their ship, humanity's most advanced vessel, was dragged down towards the chaos below. Ericsson's knuckles were white on the shuttle's controls as he spoke, his voice heavy with the weight of command. We can't abandon our crew, but we can't fight its infection head-on either. He took a deep breath, then continued. We're going to have to find another way. A way to outsmart both the Astraea and this Omega strain. As the shuttle soared into the upper atmosphere, leaving the burning city behind, Sarah felt a mix of terror and determination. They were stranded on an alien world, caught between a desperate civilization and an unimaginable threat. But they were also the best humanity had to offer, scientists, soldiers, and explorers chosen for this mission because of their skills and adaptability. "What's our next move, sir?" she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. Ericsson's eyes were fixed on the horizon, where the first of Astraea's 2 suns was beginning to set. We find a secure location. We gather intel. And then we do what humans do best. We adapt, we innovate, and we survive. As the shuttle banked towards the planet's wilderness, Sarah knew that their greatest challenge lay ahead. But she also felt a spark of hope. If any group of humans could find a way to overcome these impossible odds, it was this team. The real test of humanity's place in the cosmos was about to begin, the nexus of evolution. As the shuttle soared over the alien landscape, the team watched in awe as twin moons rose on the horizon, bathing the terrain in an ethereal violet glow. They had been flying for hours, putting distance between themselves and the chaos of the Astraea city. There, Dr. Yamamoto pointed to a formation in the distance. Those rock structures could provide natural shelter and defensibility. Captain Ericsson nodded, guiding the shuttle towards the indicated location. As they drew closer, Sarah gasped. What had appeared to be simple rock formations were actually the ruins of an ancient city, its crystalline spires still glittering faintly in the moonlight despite obvious signs of age and abandonment. Incredible, Elena breathed. A precursor civilization, perhaps. This could change everything we thought we knew about the Astraea. They sat down in a clearing near the ruins, the team quickly establishing a perimeter as Ericsson laid out their situation. We have limited supplies, unknown hostiles, and a ship full of our people in enemy hands. Our priority is survival and gathering intelligence. We need to understand this Omega strain and find a way to counter it if we're going to have any hope of rescuing the Odyssey crew. Dr. Yamamoto stepped forward, her usually calm demeanor tinged with excitement. Captain, these ruins could be key. If this is indeed a precursor civilization, they might have left behind technology or information that could help us understand the Astraea and the Omega strain. Ericsson considered for a moment, then nodded. Agreed. Yamamoto, you and Rodriguez form our science team. Chen, you're with them. Your skills in decryption might come in handy. Jackson, Cruz, you're on defense and resource gathering. I'll coordinate and maintain communication watch in case the Odyssey manages to break free. As the teams split up, Sarah followed Elena and Dr. Yamamoto into the ruins. The interior was a maze of twisting corridors and vast chambers, all seemingly carved from a single massive crystal. Strange symbols adorned the walls, pulsing faintly with residual energy. This architecture, Elena mused, running her hand along a wall. It's similar to the Astraea's, but older, more primal somehow. Dr. Yamamoto nodded, her eyes gleaming with scientific curiosity. The Astraea's technology must have evolved from this. But why did they abandon this place? And what connection does it have to the Omega strain? As if in answer to her question, they turned a corner and found themselves in a vast circular chamber. At its center stood a towering obelisk, covered in pulsing, interconnected lines of light that reminded Sarah of a circuit board. "It's some kind of data repository," Sarah breathed, approaching the obelisk. As she drew closer, the lights pulsed more rapidly, and a holographic interface sprang to life. "Chen, careful," Elena warned, but Sarah was already reaching out, her fingers dancing over the alien controls with an intuition she couldn't explain. Suddenly, the chamber was filled with swirling holographic displays, star charts, DNA sequences, and complex mathematical equations beyond anything they had ever seen. But it was the central image that caught their attention, a representation of the galaxy, with several points highlighted in pulsing red. "My God," Dr. Yamamoto whispered, "it's a map of infection sites. The Omega strain, it's not just here. It's spreading across the entire sector." As they watched in horror, Sarah's mind raced. Something about the pattern seemed familiar, tugging at the edges of her memory. Then it hit her. "Wait a second," she said, manipulating the holographic controls. "Look at the spread pattern. It's not random. There's a design to it." She zoomed in on one of the infection sites, revealing a planet that looked eerily similar to the one they were on. These aren't just random worlds. They're all planets that have been colonized or terraformed by species like the Astrea, highly advanced, genetically engineered civilizations. Elena's eyes widened in realization. The Omega strain isn't a weapon, it's a correction. A failsafe built into the fabric of this sector of the galaxy. Dr. Yamamoto nodded slowly, the implications sinking in. A system designed to prevent any one species from achieving too much power through genetic manipulation. It triggers when a civilization reaches a certain level of advancement, introducing chaos and forced evolution to reset the balance. Sarah's fingers flew over the controls, diving deeper into the data. "There's more. Look at this. The strain doesn't just affect the engineered species. It adapts them, forces them to incorporate genetic diversity from other life forms they've encountered. That's why the Astrea was so interested in us," Elena realized. They knew the strain was coming, and they thought human DNA might be the key to surviving it. As they continued to unravel the secrets of the obelisk, a plan began to form in Sarah's mind. It was dangerous, possibly even insane, but it might be their only chance. "We need to get this information to the captain," she said urgently. "I think I know how we can save our people and maybe even help the Astrea in the process." They rushed back to the camp, minds reeling with the magnitude of their discovery. As they shared their findings with Erickson and the others, Sarah could see the mix of awe and trepidation on their faces. "So let me get this straight," Erickson said, his voice gravelly with tension. "This Omega strain is some kind of galactic immune system, and the only way to survive it is to what? Voluntarily mutate our own DNA." Sarah nodded grimly. "It's not just about survival, sir. If we can understand and control the process, we might be able to use it to our advantage. Create a controlled evolution that satisfies the strain's parameters without losing our humanity." "And you think we can use this to free the Odyssey?" Jackson asked skeptically. "It's a long shot," Sarah admitted. "But if we can introduce a tailored version of the strain to our crew, it might protect them and disrupt the Astrea's control systems at the same time. It's risky, but it's the best chance we've got," Erickson finished, his expression hardening with resolve. "All right, people. We've got work to do. Yamamoto, Rodriguez, you're on cracking the genetic code of this thing. Chen, I want you working on a way to transmit whatever we come up with to the Odyssey. The rest of us will focus on defense and gathering any materials you need." As the team sprung into action, Sarah felt a mix of terror and exhilaration. They were about to attempt something unprecedented, controlled human evolution in response to an alien threat. The next few days would determine not just their own fate, but potentially the future of humanity among the stars. Little did they know, Their actions were about to set in motion a chain of events that would reshape the balance of power in this sector of the galaxy forever. Evolutionary Gambit. The ruins hummed with activity as humanity's best and brightest raced against time. Dr. Yamamoto and Elena had converted one of the ancient chambers into a makeshift laboratory, its crystalline walls now covered in holographic projections of twisting DNA strands and viral structures. Sarah sat cross-legged before the obelisk, her mind melded with the alien interface as she worked to unlock its secrets. Captain Erickson entered, his face haggard from lack of sleep, but eyes burning with determination. "Status report," he barked. Elena looked up from a complex 3D model of the Omega strain. "We're making progress, sir. We've isolated the key components of the strain that trigger controlled mutation. The challenge is tailoring it to human physiology without losing our essential, humanity." "We can't afford to be too cautious," Yamamoto interjected. "The latest scans show the infection spreading rapidly across the planet. The Astrea's major population centers are already overrun." Sarah's voice drifted over, distant and dreamy, as she remained connected to the obelisk. "The Nexus is adapting, evolving. It's learning from the Astrea's resistance. We don't have much time." Erickson's jaw clenched. "Then we take the risk. How soon can we have a working prototype?" Elena and Yamamoto exchanged glances. "A few hours, maybe," Elena said. "But sir, we have no way to test it. The first human trial will be..." "Me," Erickson finished firmly. "I won't ask my crew to take a risk I'm not willing to take myself." Before anyone could protest, alarms blared throughout the ruins. Lieutenant Commander Jackson's voice crackled over the comm. "Captain, we've got incoming. Multiple airborne contacts, moving fast." "Damn it," Erickson cursed. "They found us. Chen, any luck on contacting the Odyssey?" Sarah blinked, coming out of her trance-like state. "Yes, sir, I've managed to establish a weak signal. But it's not good. The Astrea are using our own crew as hostages. They're demanding we turn over any data we've gathered on the Omega strain." "Not gonna happen," Erickson growled. He turned to the scientists. "You've got 1 hour. After that, we'll have to take our chances with what we've got. Jackson, Cruz, prepare our defenses. We need to buy them time." As the captain strode out, Sarah caught Elena's arm. "Wait," she said, her eyes wide with a sudden realization. "I think I know how we can turn this around." She led them back to the obelisk, her fingers flying over the controls. "Look at this," she said, pulling up a new set of holographic data. "The Nexus doesn't just control the Omega strain. It's a complete archive of evolutionary data for this entire sector, including Earth." Elena breathed, understanding dawning. "You're saying we could use this to engineer a countermeasure based on humanity's own evolutionary history?" Sarah nodded excitedly. "Exactly. We faced countless plagues and evolutionary pressures. If we can incorporate that resilience into the strain..." Dr. Yamamoto was already moving, recalibrating their equipment. It could work. A hybrid virus that satisfies the Nexus requirements for enforced evolution while drawing on humanity's adaptability. They worked feverishly, the sounds of battle growing closer as Jackson and Cruz held off the Astrea assault. Just as Erickson returned, face streaked with sweat and grime, Elena held up a vial of shimmering liquid. "It's done," she said. "As ready as it'll ever be." Erickson didn't hesitate. He took the vial and downed its contents in one swift motion. For a moment, nothing happened. Then he doubled over, gasping in pain. "Captain," Sarah cried, moving to help him. But Erickson held up a hand, his body shuddering as the hybrid virus took effect. When he straightened, his eyes glowed with an inner fire. His skin seemed to ripple, taking on a subtle iridescence reminiscent of the Astrea. But his voice, when he spoke, was still unmistakably human. "I can feel it," he said in awe. "The power, the potential, it's incredible." A massive explosion rocked the ruins. "They've breached the outer defenses." Jackson's voice shouted over the comm. "Time to test this new evolution," Erickson said grimly. "Chen, transmit the formula to the Odyssey. Tell them it's time for humanity to take its next step." As Sarah rushed to comply, Erickson strode out to meet the Astrea assault. The air around him crackled with energy, his newfound powers manifesting in ways they could barely comprehend. Through the ruins' ancient senses, they watched in awe as Erickson single-handedly turned the tide of battle. He moved with inhuman speed and strength, his very touch seeming to disrupt the Omega strain's hold on the infected Astrea. "It's working," Elena exclaimed. "The hybrid virus is acting as a stabilizing force, allowing controlled evolution without succumbing to the strain's chaos." As the last of the Astrea forces fell back, a new alert sounded. Sarah's eyes widened as she interpreted the data. "The Odyssey. They've broken free of Astrea control. The crew is fighting back." Cheers erupted in the command center, but their celebration was short-lived as a massive tremor shook the entire planet. "What now?" Yamamoto asked, fear evident in her voice. Sarah's fingers danced over the obelisk's controls, her expression growing increasingly alarmed. "The Nexus. It's activating some kind of failsafe. The entire planet is becoming unstable." Erickson's voice came over the comm, tight with urgency. "Everyone to the shuttle now. We're getting off this rock." As they raced through the crumbling ruins, dodging falling debris, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they had set in motion events far beyond their control. They had survived, yes, and perhaps even taken the next step in human evolution. But at what cost? The shuttle lifted off just as massive fissures began to tear the planet apart. As they broke atmosphere, they saw the Odyssey descending to meet them, its hull scarred but intact. In the silence of space, they watched as the planet below was consumed in a cataclysm of energy. The Nexus, the source of both their salvation and near destruction, vanished in a blinding flash. Erickson stood at the viewport, his transformed body a testament to humanity's new potential. "We've won the battle," he said softly, "but I fear the war for our species' future is just beginning." As the Odyssey set course for Earth, its crew forever changed by their encounter with the Omega strain, Sarah knew that nothing would ever be the same. Humanity had taken its first, irreversible step into a larger, more dangerous universe. And somewhere out there, the echoes of their actions were spreading, rippling across the cosmos. The balance of power had shifted, and the galaxy would never be the same. The journey home would be long, but it was only the beginning of humanity's greatest adventure.